Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to watch 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. You really deserve it. You really do. Let's watch.
Tonight is our last night in Ethiopia, and Vinny has only just started telling his family that he's leaving.
ግን ደግሞ ቤተሰብናችን ደግሞ ብታስቢውን ደግሞ ቀድመ 3 ቀን አንድ ሳምንት
Okay, I'm happy that I'm not going to see you guys anymore, and you know what? I'm not going to marry you guys. I'm marrying Biniyam.
Okay, so when this first happened last week in the episode, I didn't react to it. I mean, I reacted to it, but I didn't have much to say other than yikes. But I think in this episode this week, they're going to go into more about this. And so, I mean, we're watching the as seen previously, and that's why they're showing this scene again. And what I'll say, my own personal take, and this isn't really a therapist take, it's just a citizen take, that, well, let me talk a little bit about what I thought, which is that the family has been through a lot. And Biniyam is the youngest, I believe, out of 7 kids, I believe. The parents died when he was very young. The siblings went through a lot, and they had to band together in all likelihood. And they took the parenting responsibilities on by default because Biniyam was quite young and there were other siblings that were young. And I think these 2 older sisters feel very responsible for Biniyam, and that parentification can carry with it some resentment and also some rigidity to it. We saw that with Tanya and her younger sister. There was at least some minor indication of that you as a child, so imagine, you know, you're 13 years old and you're forced by circumstance or otherwise to take care of your younger sibling. So on one hand, you feel powerful. On the other hand, you resent it because it's a responsibility that you don't want to have. You want to be a kid, but you're forced into it. So one of the defenses against this difficulty of parentification is to lean into the power aspect of it. It's like, well, okay, fine, I have to give up my childhood. I have to take care of this younger person. I can't play with my friends because I have to watch my younger brother. But at least I have the power. At least it feels good to be in power. And we all like power, and particularly kids like power because they often feel powerless. So one of the things that can become rigid in your personality and in the relationship is you're like, well, I'll be damned if I'm going to give up that power, because that's the one thing that I get out of this scenario. It's the one thing that is the benefit of this, and so I'm not going to give that up. And what that can manifest in sometimes is as the kid grows up, as the Biniyams grow up in the world, and they start to be able to fend for themselves, you still hold on to, well, I'm not giving up this power. Another message that you might get is you are responsible for that younger person. And if that person makes a mistake, it's your fault. And that's often involved in parentification. So if you have that, then you feel even more motivation to control and criticize and confine your younger sibling because you're worried that if you provide freedom, they're going to make a mistake, and then everyone's going to hate you, and it's going to be your fault. So I don't know if that's what we're seeing here, but there are signs of that. And the other sign of it is that Biniyam knew he was moving to the United States, potentially for the rest of his life. He is very close to his family and to his community and everything, and he has never talked up until this point, as far as I know, about doing this. They have talked up until this point that, you know, they're going to live in Ethiopia. And so he is avoiding telling his family that he is moving to the United States because, I imagine, just a guess, that he's worried that they're going to have a reaction, which they clearly do have a reaction to that. And he's used to them controlling them and criticizing him and not letting him make his own choices. I don't know, but or at the very least, he's avoiding confrontation. We know that he did that a lot with Ariela, that when she would call, and, you know, she's in the States, he's in Ethiopia, and he would just turn his phone off, or he wouldn't answer his phone, or when they do talk, he just tries to get the conversation, you know, tries to get the fight to end, and then he doesn't actually try to resolve the issue. And so, or at nighttime, he'll go out at night because I think he's trying to avoid the conflict, and or he's trying to send a passive-aggressive message that he's upset about something that Ariela did. And so he avoided the whole thing. Avoid, because he's scared. And, wrong-headedly believes that it's the better path to take, which of course it is not. And so he waits until the last minute to tell, almost the very last minute. He's leaving to the United States tomorrow, tells his family. They get upset, and because they still see Biniyam as a child, as a dependent person, they blame Ariela for it because it's a triangulation. Their real conflict is with Biniyam. Biniyam did not tell his family he was moving. That is a huge deal. You could argue it's a hostile act. It treats his family like they don't matter. He probably told his friends before he told his family. So there's that. And then, but because of their traumas and their family or whatever, they can't tolerate that conflict. So they triangulate Ariela into it, and they fight with Ariela. Ariela at first was reacting pretty well during the conflict, but eventually she got triggered and she starts attacking back, which helps the triangulation occur. Biniyam is avoiding the whole thing, just not doing anything. And then the sisters splash her in the face with wine, which is a very aggressive act and not okay. I know on this show it's some sort of a trope and some people will cheer people for this. No, you do not do this sort of thing. It's a violent act. It's a mild violent act, but it's still a violent act, and it's not okay. And you can use your words. You can say, I don't like your choice. I don't like you. I don't like what you've done. I wish you never met my younger brother. You can say things like that, but you cannot put hands on or liquids on, if you will. It's not okay, because it's a slippery slope of this to escalating violence and dominance and entitlement to someone else's body, which is not okay. Anyway, so they blame Ariela. They get in a fight with her. Ariela takes the bait, and the whole situation can be narrativized by the sister that Ariela is this evil, manipulative person on Biniyam. And all Biniyam had to say was something like, hey, sisters, it's not Ariela's fault. Wait, it's not my wife's fault, okay? This is my decision. Now, I decided this based on us talking about it together. I initially did not want to leave Ethiopia for obvious reasons, but she really wants to go, and she's lived here a long time, and I'm willing to give it a try. There's some pros and cons to it for our family. And I have thought about it, and I decided that I will go. And she's not manipulating me. She's not controlling me. I'm a grown man. I can make my own choices. Like I said, I wouldn't have done it if she didn't want to do it, but I want to be in a happy family, and I understand where my wife is coming from, and I want to do this. So do not blame my wife. It's my choice. And if you have an issue with this, it's with me, because, we have the relationship. You don't have a strong relationship with my wife. Talk to me about it. Splash me in the face with wine, that kind of thing. But we've never heard anything like that from Biniyam towards his family, because there's a chance that he actually believes that he is kind of like a child in relation to them. And maybe there's some sort of cultural respect issue that you're supposed to be deferential. But I don't know. You can still be deferential. You could have done that whole thing that I role played in a more deferential way. But yeah, it's unfortunate that this is happening. And then what could become of this is that the whole family, Biniyam and Ariela, could cut themselves off from the sisters. If the sisters are trying to protect Biniyam, then this protection could actually drive them apart, unfortunately, right?
I have a question.
Yes. Listening.
I think my family, they come for lunch, for goodbye, for Avi, like something. They come with us.
Okay, I didn't show it, but Biniyam in the one-on-one interview said that he regrets not telling his family earlier, and that resulted in his family being angry at Ariela, which isn't right of them, and this is all my fault, which is the right way of looking at it, I think. I don't think he's terribly ashamed of himself, but he recognizes it. I don't think he should be terribly ashamed of himself, but he should recognize that, yes, it is indeed. I mean, he didn't make his sisters do what they did to Ariela, but he did create the environment upon which they thought it was their right to do so, which it wasn't. But so for Biniyam, he now is saying to Ariela, my family wants to say goodbye to Avi, their child, and they're coming for lunch. Okay. Are you going to come, Ariela? All right. So he could have said other things, like what he said in the one-on-one interview. He could have said that to Ariela. He might have, but we don't see evidence of that. And sometimes that happens. In the one-on-one interview, they're much more differentiated and fair, and then in person they don't do things. And we all are like that, because when we're in the presence of the person who can trigger us, it's harder for us to be vulnerable and to think straight. But so let's see how this conversation goes.
I don't think so. No, I'm not coming.
Ari and Wish, it's not the first time they're fighting.
Okay, she's saying she doesn't want to go. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's for the best. I don't know what to think about Ariela and Wish, who is Biniyam's sister. There's been a fair amount of conflict between Ariela and Wish over a number of years, actually, because Ariela and Biniyam have been together for a number of years. And I don't know what to make of it. It's hard for me to tell. And I hear people commenting, it's like, well, clearly it's Ariela's fault, clearly it's Biniyam's fault, clearly it's Wish's fault, and there's not a lot of in between. I don't know how to make of it. On one hand, there's some evidence that Wish and maybe other family members were actively trying to manipulate Ariela into being jealous by telling Biniyam, while Ariela was in the States, that Biniyam was having women over to his house, because Ariela and Ariela's mom referred to the sisters telling them that Biniyam was up to no good. And if you're really on your brother's side, the way that you clearly are, why would you tell Ariela that? And on one hand, he's like, well, it's just good to be a good family member and inform people about what's going on. On the other hand, people might say that they're trying to manipulate Ariela into breaking up with Biniyam because they don't want Ariela in their lives, or they don't want Biniyam to move from Ethiopia. And so it raises questions about the past relationship that Biniyam was in. I don't know. It's all speculation. On the other hand, Ariela has seemingly had a tough time navigating the relationship with the sisters in a diplomatic way. And of course, Biniyam plays a role because of the passivity that I referred to earlier. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think someone is more unfair than someone else in this situation?
Moving on. You can't be sad all day long, You got a flight to catch. I have a baby to watch. It's not like I didn't try a million times to call them and to help them when they need help. And I know my conscience is clear. I've done everything I could possibly do to be nice to them, to try to be their family.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm remembering their exact accusation of Ariela, which was that it was her responsibility to tell them that they were moving to the States and not Biniyam. I mean, it was interesting to see the instant triangulation happen, that they find out, wait, because Biniyam's saying, yeah, we're going to move to the States, and then they instantly start targeting Ariela. Biniyam says no, and then Ariela's like, hey, it's not my place to tell you. It's your brother's place to tell you, which you could see being a reasonable take on the situation. Plus, it could be a little demeaning to Biniyam to circumvent him by telling the sisters, like, well, if you're not going to tell him, I'm going to tell him. I mean, there could be some justification for that. But anyway, the sisters were yelling at Ariela, saying, it's your fault. You claim to be family, and you didn't treat us like family. You should have told us. Like, well, why aren't you leveling that accusation on Biniyam? Because obviously he's more family than Ariela is. So yeah, it was an interesting triangulation formation.
No, the main thing try to nice, peace.
I've been very nice. Very nice. And I'm very peaceful. I'm not calling them and saying, you threw wine at me, you did this. Nothing. I'm done.
I understand your feeling. I understand you're so upset.
So on one hand, I totally get where Ariela is coming from. She's just like, yeah, I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to get into the drama. And I'm just going to move forward in life. We've got a plane to catch. I have a child to raise, and we have things moving forward. But she's also said things like, once we get to the States, I'm never going to talk to you again. I don't want you in our lives. Not maybe that exactly, but that kind of words. And that's not realistic to Biniyam in particular. So, and to Avi. Avi and Biniyam, who knows what Avi will feel like later on, but I'm guessing at least the option should be there that this is family. And I don't know about Ariela, but it is a common American idea that extended family is optional. And in most communities around the world, extended family is not optional. In fact, even the phrase extended family is perhaps foreign to people outside of mainstream American culture, where it's just family, right? And for Ariela, she seems to be coming from a place of like, okay, we're moving and we're done with them and they're out of our lives. I've always wanted that. And for Biniyam, he might be like, that's just not an option for me. I'm not going to cut them out of our lives, and I don't want to cut them out of Avi's life. And so, yeah, what they did was wrong, but they're family, and we can't do anything about that. They're in our lives, and I want them in my life. So let's see how they navigate this. Now, if Biniyam were to say, I totally understand where you're coming from. I might even get where you're coming from culturally. I validate your feelings. I totally get that. But even though they've done wrong to you and me, particularly you, they're my family, and I love them so much, and there's a lot of good in them that I know. And could you open yourself up to the possibility that at least I and maybe Avi will be involved with them a little bit more, and I'll try to work with them on not treating you this way. There's a gray zone there, or a place of validation while also asserting yourself. Let's see what he says.
No, I'm not upset. I told you that already. You're the one who's upset. Your sisters are upset. I'm not upset. I'm focused on packing and my baby.
Okay. I'm upset. It sucks.
Yeah, I think he might be on the verge of crying. I'm not sure, but we see him do this often, where I think he's starting to feel distress, and he doesn't know what to do, and he goes to this kind of frustrated place, and then he, I think, shuts down. I mean, there's so much more he could be saying in this moment, and similar to what I was role playing earlier. But he will do this. He'll get frustrated and he'll go, oh, and then he gets quiet, and that is a sign of avoidant attachment, where there's this emerging well of emotion and motivation to engage and to fight or to express and be vulnerable. But then there's another force that says, don't do that, because no one cares, and don't be that way. Don't be weak. It's not worth it. Just shove it down, bottle it up. And I don't know, but that kind of looks like what's happening when he does that.
About this.
Do you need to say sorry?
No. No, 100% no. She said like we're not important after we done everything to her. Like it hurts me.
Yeah, I can see that. Ariela, after being yelled at for something that was unfair to her, did say some hurtful things, and has said hurtful things in the past towards them as well. And the way Ariela says them, it's often very dismissive. I don't know if Ariela intends on coming across that way, but from my memory, because I've watched them from the beginning, her tone about Biniyam's family can be, I don't know any other word other than dismissive. I don't want to say superior, but like you're nothing to me kind of an attitude. And so for Wish to say that she has been hurt by Ariela in this way, yeah, absolutely. But you were yelling at her about it was all her fault that Biniyam didn't tell you that he was moving, and they were both saying, well, it's not my job to do that, and I was trying to get him to tell you, but he made a choice not to. I don't know. It's not my thing. It's your family, I wanted you to know. And you escalated it, Wish escalates it, and then you splash her in the face with wine. Why? Now, I could, again, the hurtful things, and I could also imagine being hurt and afraid of what this might mean when Biniyam moves to the States, that you might not ever see your brother again or your nephew again. And that's really scary, and that could hurt a lot, absolutely. But that doesn't justify splashing her in the face with wine and being mean to her. So she stands by her behavior, and she doesn't think she has anything to apologize for. And I'm just going to take a guess and say that for perhaps years, there has been a building, and I'm not going to just suppose this, I know this to be true, that there's been a building resentment between Biniyam's family and Ariela because of the triangulation I was talking about earlier, because Biniyam doesn't actually broker a peace, because he doesn't stand up to his family and say, I don't want to do this personally, but I'm in love with my wife and I want a good family, so I have made the choice. I think Biniyam often either stays out of it, or he'll give the impression like, well, I'm only doing this because she's making me. I don't know if that's true necessarily, and then that sucks the rest of the family into a parentified attitude towards Biniyam, and then they go after Ariela. When Biniyam should be saying, this is our deal, and yes, she has proposed this idea of moving to the States, and I wouldn't be doing it otherwise, but it's my choice, and I am doing this willingly. She's not forcing me. She asked, and I agreed, and so if you have a problem, it's with me. He doesn't appear to do anything like that. So I think they've had years of that dynamic. I think Biniyam also kind of resents Ariela for perhaps some legitimate reasons and wants his family to kind of stick up for him. So I think they're in a real entanglement that I don't think is going to end when they move to the States. I imagine it's just going to, I bet you anything, the way it'll manifest is that Biniyam will have frequent conversations with his family who are out to get Ariela, and he turns to his family for support because he doesn't have anyone else to talk to, and he starts to get infected, so to speak, with their negativity, and then he becomes emboldened and doesn't head into assertiveness with a level head, comes at Ariela. Ariela then says, this is your family in your head. Like I can just see that whole thing happening, which isn't going to help. Yeah, the other sister is having more of what I would encourage the family members to have, an expression that I would recommend, which is the pain and the sadness of seeing him go, the sadness perhaps of not being told earlier, and that makes sense. Just express that. And I wonder if Wish actually has a hard time with those emotions, and will use distractions like hostility and splashing people in the face with wine as a way of trying to avoid acknowledging her own pain around this, because it would be very painful. The pain of this could be the first time since the parents died that they are losing contact with one of their dear family members. And I don't know about Ethiopia. I mean, I do know a little bit because there was a time when I treated a fair amount of Ethiopian immigrant families who had just immigrated to the States, and were still very much adhering to Ethiopian culture. So I would observe that, and the emphasis on family. And again, I've said this other times that United States mainstream culture is is in particular anti-extended family, anti others in the family. And so I could imagine that this is a huge blow for them. And, these feelings are natural. And I hope that they get a chance to express them and take care of each other, which I think is happening right now.
We're really sad because he's leaving as a family. We have strong bond. We're always there for him, and we're gonna be there for him no matter what.
ስራህ ላይ ትኩረት አድርግ፣ ልጅህ ላይ ትኩረት አድርግ፣ ቤተሰብህ ላይ ትኩረት አድርግ።
የሚቻለውን ፖሲቢሊቲ ሁላ ተጠቅመን ልጁን ማግኘት አለብን።
Yeah, that's another aspect of wonderfulness, that Biniyam might be able to have contact with his other child. People have emailed me, I think, speculations based on limited information that he might have agreed. Someone said, I don't know, I won't spread rumors, but there's a possibility, according to some people, that there's some behind the scenes things happening with Biniyam and the producers of the show and his previous partner, that is there's more there than we're hearing. Because the way that the show makes it seem is that he got into some conflict with his first partner, and she just took the child away from him and abandoned him. And I've heard reports, I don't know, that it's way more complicated than that. But anyway, at the very least, if it's possible for him to be involved in his child's life and all that can be facilitated within reason, then, that'd be a good thing. All right, there's a new thing on YouTube where you can give what they call super thanks in the comments below, I believe. I got notified that it's a new thing, or they're asking if I wanted to sign up, and I clicked a button and it authorized on our channel that you can give super thanks. And I think it's sort of like super chat, and you pay for it, but it's a way that you could contribute quickly, I guess, to the YouTube channel. I'm not exactly sure. I'm also not sure how I want to do it. So, because like on the super chat, on the live streams, when people would, add some money into their question on a super chat, I believe, what's it called? Yeah, super chat, that those questions would be prioritized, because there were a lot of questions during my Q&As during the live stream. So I don't know, but I'm wondering if with the super thanks in the comments below, that it might be a way to get a question more likely to be commented on during the comments video I do at the end of the week, or maybe it's a way for me just to see something more likely. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to work it, and of course, if no one wants to do that, it's totally fine. It won't hurt my feelings. I just thought I'd throw it out there as a way, because I think other channels, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So if you want to, and I'm not sure what is going to happen or if it ever will, but just know about that. Super thanks. Not sure how to do it. Maybe it's an option when you're commenting, but anyway. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.